Konnichiwa, Kawaii Critic here to review My Little Ponies, The Crsytalling, Part 1 and 2 of Season 6. So, My Little Pony has returned fairly early, and it wasn't much of a hiatus at all, and it was more like a short break. So, there will be spoilers in this review of both Part 1 and 2. So, with that being said, let's dive right into it. So, we begin the episode with Starlight Glimmer canvassing the castle and being hopelessly lost. She bumps into Spike and he tells her where to go to find Twilight, who has all these lessons planned out for her and that she's gonna dwindle them down into a specific one. And Starlight Glimmer is completely overwhelmed by this. But we see that once the other six gather together, that they're talking about this crystalling that involves the baby. And after they talk about what this backstory exposition is, we get to see Twilight go outside and get this invitation. So while they get the invitation, she says that it's for the crystalling and that this is gonna help build the lessons down into one, which is, of course, meet her late friend Sunburst. And upon hearing this news, Starlight Glimmer realizes that, I'm about to meet Sunburst again, and I did all this bad stuff. So, in that aspect, this episode, in a way, deals with sort of this shame where doing something that you're not proud of and going back to a friend and trying to rekindle that friendship and all that good stuff. So, of course, Twilight Glimmer doesn't really necessarily want to do that, but upon reaching the Crystal Empire, Twilight is delegated to helping her brother take care of the new baby. So Spike is now delegated to Starlight Glimmer, which is an interesting aspect. I feel like Spike being delegated is something that has been maybe done before. I can't remember right at this point, but I think these two, from the last time we've seen them to this time, it's a really interesting way of handling these two characters, how they are interacting with each other, and of course, with Starlight not wanting to progress, she notices this castle, or the statue of Spike, and asks him to tell her the story of how that came to be, and of course these other ponies are gathering around and sort of stopping him in his tracks of trying to help her. And Starlight Glimmer, taking a little note from Rainbow Dash from the previous season, taking out a bag of popcorn magically and just starting to eat it and enjoying the story. And we see that Twilight and company are saying that the baby is, of course, an alicorn. Now, this is where the episode gets a little bit confusing, as it does say in the episode that this has never been seen before by, of course, Celestia, and that made me a little bit confused because it made me think, well, did Luna and Celestia also earn their wings like Twilight did? Perhaps. I'm not sure anymore. I mean, if it's never been seen before, could that be the only other explanation? But other than being a little bit confusing and vague in certain places, it doesn't necessarily ruin the episode entirely. But the other aspect is that the main evil, if you will, isn't necessarily a villain. We don't know who the villain is in this episode, which in prior seasons has always usually been the case. We see who the villain is in the two-parter, and then At the end, we know who's going to be returning. In this case, now we don't know who's going to be the main villain, so it's open to interpretation of where they're going to go from there, which in its own right is pretty cool to see. But for this episode, it also means that the problem that they're dealing with is a bit smaller in scale. So, yes, the ice is like uh, accumulating around the area because the baby broke the heart, and they're trying to scatter around and trying to figure out what to do. They're trying to get a book that can help them figure this out, and Luna and Celestia actually go out and start blasting some clouds, but eventually it catches up with them. So, while that is going on, we see that uh, Starlight has finally confronted Sunburst, and it's very awkward because we see immediate hints that Sunburst isn't this great wizard that she assumed that he was. And again, it sort of goes back to the shame aspect of, you know, Starlight has this secret of doing all this dark and evil stuff, and now we see that Sunburst hasn't really achieved this great wizardry. He is aware of it, like aware of the type of magic, but he has not mastered it apparently. So we get a bit of comic relief as the baby had blown up the book that Twilight built, and this was like the biggest anti-convenience I've ever seen, where the laser goes shielding off all the ponies, and then eventually hits the book directly, and now they're back to zero. They thought they could fix it, but now they have nothing again, and so the separation gets even further as some of the ponies tried to help evacuate, but none of the ponies in the crowd are listening. They don't want anything to do with that. They just want to see the babe. So, yeah. And eventually, Starlight gives up and she figures, might as well go to the castle, tell Twilight that I failed, and then she comes back, and that was when the book burned. And she sort of brings up Sunburst being this wizard because she still assumes that he is. And of course, uh, one of the princesses, I think it was Cadence, that told her that hey, he's a wizard, he could probably help us. So they go back and they asked him to help with the wizarding, and of course he finally reveals that he's not a wizard and couldn't quite live up to the expectations of being the so-called wizard. And Starlight also confesses that she did all this dark and evil stuff, and it's a truth reveal cliche, and in this case it does work for me. I mean, we get two different characters that are both doing this, and the result isn't, oh, I'm mad at you. It's actually the opposite. It's, oh, I'm sort of relieved I got this off of my chest, and it's both of the characters both hiding different things. So they were able to rekindle their friendship, which is nice. And with that, they both head back to the castle. They meet up with the others that were about to evacuate because Sunburst says that he knows the solution after they talk a bit. They head back to the castle and they all magic up in their own respects. The baby gets powered down, which is a bit confusing. I thought they were going to keep that up for a bit, but I guess not. They're going in a different direction, I guess, from the baby continuously having power surges or whatever. So that isn't going to be the crux of this season at all. And yeah, this episode had a few moments of like anti conveniences of just, oh, this thing happened, and like the book burning, and it's like, oh no, like that was a bit too much for me, but I mean, it still got a laugh, but I really enjoyed how they handled the message of this episode. I think that is this episode's strength, and it's not just these two characters, it's also Twilight that learns a lesson as well as being a teacher. She doesn't realize that what she was doing was sort of what Celestia has been doing all this time, which is sort of teaching her from afar, letting Starlight get her space and just sort of figure her situation out on her own. And I mean, she had Spike there with her, which is nice as well. But so I was like, oh, I didn't help her, and then Spike was like, well, that's sort of what Celestia does, isn't it? And then she was like, oh yeah. So there were actually three different characters that learned a lesson in this episode. So that's interesting. As in season 5, it always felt like a lot of the episode was very focused on uh, helping two characters learn something at a time, and now it seems like in the well, at least for this two-parter episode, that three characters have learned lessons here. Two of them are the same, but for a different reason, and of course, Twilight for her reason. So, what comes next? It seems like Starlight is going to be continuing to learn lessons. I don't know if the baby's going to be uh, too relevant. I don't know. I mean, if they're going to go back to Ponyville, uh, she's in the Crystal Empire, so I'm not sure if she's going to be the focus, and Sunburst is also there, so I can't say he's gonna be the focus. So I guess it's sort of like between Starlight Glimmer and the rest of the ponies just learning different things throughout the season that maybe they quite haven't learned yet, or maybe it's like a branch off of something they already learned, but it's slightly different. Who knows? It's still a complete mystery to me, but I enjoyed this episode even with its few hiccups here and there. So overall, I enjoyed it. Now I'm not going to give it a score quite yet, as I feel it's a bit too early, especially since the rest of the season still has to go through. So I'm going to leave that out of this review for now. But with that being said, this has been Kawaii Critic, and remember guys, keep it kawaii.